It's time to ditch the excuses. Get up, get out, and shut the f up. This is the Adjusting to Six Figures podcast.
All right, Britt. So finally, we've got this going after some technical issues. So while we were waiting to get this thing kicked off, I was checking out your Instagram, and I got to congratulate you. I like seeing other people that are in the insurance space that actually like are using social media and not just a plain boring way with just, boring templated Canva style, just images with quotes on it. You're actually trying to build, I don't know if I want to say influencer type of,
People keep using that word, and I never used it myself, but people keep using it for me. And I mean, technically influencer, like you're trying to like influence on a specific topic. And this idea of creating social media around property insurance was, this whole idea came out of trying to educate people about insurance, because I was getting clients left and right who didn't know what their responsibilities were. They didn't understand what the insurance covered and didn't cover. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get the word out. I'm going to clear things up, educate people so that they're not stuck in these problems like over and over and over again.
Right. And the best way, social media, just to get it out there and to get the message out there, which I hate to sound old, but like, I haven't been in this field for very long, about 10 years now. But I remember back, 10 years ago, I mean, this was before social media was so big, and property insurance specifically. I mean, it just wasn't, I mean, it's still not very a sexy topic
Not a
or
sexy
anything
topic.
like that.
No.
Yeah. So, but now that I guess, because we look like we're about, how old are you?
29.
It's 29. We're about this. I'm a little bit old. I'm 34, so I'm a little bit older. But now that kind of our generation is coming up now with more technology and the average customers, we're kind of approaching that age. It's becoming more of a thing to be able to learn more about seemingly boring topics like property insurance, right? What got so how did you end up involved in this area in property
I
insurance?
always say that I fell into it because I did. I thought in law school and when I graduated and applied to my first lawyer jobs, I was like, I'm going to do corporate law, like mergers, acquisitions, big companies. Like I was all ready to go the transactional route, but it's very difficult to break into the transactional arena, especially as, a 24-year-old woman, especially. So my dad was like, hey, why don't you try to get a job at a commercial law firm? So basically, doing business litigation so that you can kind of get the in with the companies in the litigation side and then make the relationships for the transactional side. I was like, okay, great. That sounds good. Get a job at a big firm. They had like zero like commercial law. I worked for this really, really old, I mean, he was in his 70s at that point, which was great. I learned a ton from him, but I was doing like PI, residential disputes, some criminal stuff. I mean, I was doing all sorts of everything, premises liability, all sorts of stuff. And there was a big insurance defense department at that firm. And one of the partners was like, hey, I need you to take a couple cases. And I was like, okay, sure. Yeah. She gave me like, I don't know, 50 cases. So I'm like inundated with all these cases. I've never seen an insurance policy in my life ever. Right. I was like just thrown into it. So I'm like trying to learn. Thank God I was really good at contracts in school because policy is a contract, right? So I'm reading through these contracts, trying to figure out what everything means. So I was kind of like thrown in the deep end in defense. So working for the insurance companies. And then I decided wasn't really my thing. Didn't like representing the insurance companies. Didn't like being at a big law firm. So I flip-flopped to the insured side, the plaintiff side, and at a much smaller law firm, boutique firm. And I loved it. Loved it. I was like, this is it. This is what I should do. And then at some point, I was marketing, I was bringing in clients. I was like, you know what? I could do this for myself. And so that was a big transition. So that's how I went from like corporate and transactional to doing litigation.
Right. So you went from big commercial corporate to smaller boutique firm to you're saying just running your own show.
Mm-hmm. That's about it.
What That's crazy. So let me ask you this. I mean, I've been pretty outspoken. I'm on the, insurance care at the time of this recording. I'm at the insurance carrier side, but I'm far from team insurance. I mean, I've being here for so long, in the very beginning, I was, I've never been totally pro insurance company side or anything like that. But as time definitely has progressed, I feel like if you have any sort of awareness about your surroundings, it is hard not to see the really kind of at times just straight up unethical behavior that's committed by the insurance companies. And being on the insurance carrier side, you're kind of obligated to just turn a deaf ear to it and just continue to do what you have to do in order to get paid, right?
Right. And I don't fault any like person, any like single human being on the insurance company side doing what they're supposed to be doing for their client, because I was there. I know what it's like. I know how, tough it can be to be representing your client, because you technically are looking out for their interests too, and there are laws in place and whatnot. But I completely understand what you're saying.
So what ended up why did you make the jump? Did you move away from working with insurance companies because of something the insurance companies were doing, or did you just like not like I guess the large corporate aspect of it? I guess is that right?
I didn't like the large firm feel. So I didn't like large firm feel. So I knew I wanted boutique, and most boutiques are plaintiff side. But also there was a lot of atmosphere that, people would say, oh, everything is fraud. Oh, these people are being fraudulent, to the point where like I was taking a deposition of like an 80-year-old lady, super nice woman. And, the person I'm working with on this file is like, oh, she's lying about all this, like grill her harder. And I'm like, I want to grill her. I believe her. I think that what she's saying is credible, so I started to feel terrible. And then it was the point where, we were getting cases resolved. So I'd call adjusters, hey, we got this case resolved. And it was just like, okay, what about this other file and this other file and this other thing and that other deposition? So it was like not as enjoyable. Now I call a client, I'm like, hey, we've got you the money for the roof, the money for your kitchen. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Like, it's a different feeling.
Yeah, it's definitely even on my side when you're a number, I would imagine that the insurance companies, I mean, they're dealing with so many of these cases, right? And so you winning a case for the insurance company, it's like, congratulations, you won this case. Now we're moving on to the next one, and this never ending flow of just litigation, versus maybe just a homeowner. Right, a homeowner that you're working directly with, and at that moment in time, that is all that homeowner is focused on, is just getting the money to make whatever repairs are needed to their house. That's the biggest story that they have going on, so being able to accomplish that, you're getting more of the, the I'm trying to figure out the stimulation of knowing that you actually made an impact on somebody's life versus the insurance company. You helped out the bottom line, whether it was, rightfully so or not, you just helped out a number on a P&L sheet, right? I mean, am I hitting close with that? Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand that they're a company, they're a corporation trying to make money. That's the point of it. And there's people that are working there. It's a big corporation. You know what I mean? So your bottom line doesn't contribute too much. So I think if you're on the defense side, you kind of have to love the fight of it. You have to love the
Right.
dispute and figuring out the problem more so than just helping out a person, because you're not really.
So I have to ask, like, what made you, being an attorney, being a lawyer is like one of those things, right? Where when you're growing up, you're going to be you want to be a lawyer, a doctor, police officer, firefighter, one of those things. Did you always know this was the route that you were going to go in to be an attorney?
So yes and no. And I know that's such a lawyer answer, but yes and no. So I saw Legally Blonde when I was, I don't know,
Wow.
I
Okay.
guess I was 11 or 12 or something. And I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to be Elle Woods. Like that was it until I was maybe like 16, like I had this like fire. I was like, I'm going to be Elle Woods. This is going to be so great. And I had this fire until I was maybe 16. And I was like, maybe that's not so cool. Like, I don't know. And then I went into college and oh my gosh, I tried like all sorts of stuff in college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then really in my like, going into my senior year, my parents were like, hey, the gravy train stops when you graduate. So you better figure out what you're going to do. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, let me take the LSAT and see how it goes. And it went horribly, like absolutely terrible.
Oh,
I
man.
hated the LSAT. It was awful, but it doesn't determine how good of a lawyer you're going to be. So my dad still encouraged me. He's like, just apply, see where you get in. So I applied, got some good scholarships, decided, okay, I'm going to give it the first semester and see how I do. And then I did really well. And so I pursued it. So it was kind of like sticking my toe. I was like all gung ho and then I was unsure. And then I was kind of putting my toe in the water. And then I
Right.
succeeded. I was like, okay, maybe I should, continue down this path.
Right. Okay. So that's what brought you into law school, got out of law school. And then you found yourself in that commercial, the big working with working with the big
The
insurance
man.
companies.
Yep.
So next you found yourself just kind of going through the motions and now I'll tell you the one thing that stuck out with me and I know that that lawyers, attorneys that are on the policyholder side, right? They really kind of put it out there that, they'll get a bigger settlement out of the insurance companies. But the one thing that caught my eye as soon as I went to your Instagram is just you put flat out there, I help. I think it just says I help homeowners sue insurance companies.
Two insurance companies.
Yeah, something like that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm sure there's some stories behind that. So I mean, being a part of like both sides, and even the position that I'm in as just an adjuster, it's at times it's shocking the difference in settlements from one adjuster's involvement on that initial inspection to what the claim actually ends up being. And sometimes, yeah, it's over 10 it's over 10 times the amount. What being with your experience, I mean, why do you think that is? What do you think the problem is? Does it come down to the adjuster? Does it come down to the insurance company? I mean, is it because I've had this argument where is it negligence? Is it just educational negligence? Or is it outright unethical, just willfully trying to screw a policyholder? What do you think the problem here is?
I think it's a combination. So it's like a couple things is what I think. It's like education and marketing. So kind of like you said, where we have these people, homeowners. This is for any kind of insurance, really, but I'm going to apply it to what I know, homeowners, property insurance.
Right.
We have people who are marketed in a certain way where it's like, yeah, like get insurance and you're covered. You're covered for everything. You know what I mean? Like a good neighbor.
Right.
You're in good hands. All of this jazz about like how we're going to take care of you. But then on the back end, once it's actually time to put in a claim, repair damage, get paid out, it's like, well, actually, there's more to your
There's a
policy than
catch.
that.
Yeah.
There's certain exclusions. And like, yes, everybody gets a copy of their policy or should when they get their actual insurance, when you buy your house, when you get a new policy, when you get a new car, whatever. But nobody actually looks at that. Everyone looks at the deck page
Right.
in the front
First
and says,
page.
oh yeah, I'm covered. They just look at those Y's. They look at the total dollar amount for coverage A and say, oh, I'm good. I'm covered. But like there's 50 to 100 other pages back there that actually describe what is covered and what's not.
Yeah.
And nobody looks at that. So I have people that reach out to me and they'll be like, oh, I had no idea that wear and tear isn't covered, that long-term damage isn't covered. People think like, oh, well, I bought my house 20 years ago. It needs a new roof. I got to put an insurance claim in. Well, that's like insurance claim 101, not covered.
Right.
Right. So that's where there's a disconnect where people think, oh, I have insurance, I'm good, but they don't know what's actually in their policy. So education and marketing. And then I think the second thing is the litigiousness of our society specifically. So it's like a never take the first offer type deal because you know it's not the best offer. Usually it's not.
Right.
So you have these people that are maybe, I don't know if it's intentional or not, it may be, but the point is that these first initial payments come in super low because they know or think or are preparing to get pushback, to get a fight from somebody else who's saying, no, we need more money. No, it's going to cost more, potentially going into a lawsuit, all these things, right? So people that we know that they're not going to accept the first offer, accept the first payment, or most people don't if they understand like what's going on, what the actual cost is going to be. So that also comes into play. I think those are like the biggest factors in why there's significant underpayments or denials that end up getting paid tons later on once they go to a public adjuster or just come to us, especially in litigation.
Yeah. Do you think, here's a question for you. And I've always wanted to ask an attorney this, and I don't know if this is something you feel comfortable answering.
Disclaimer, not legal advice.
Yeah. What would you if there's a person, okay, I understand you have a public adjuster that's going to, fight on behalf of the policyholder, right? Now, although public adjusters do have a lot of say, they do have a lot of influence in the process in how the claim would go. Would it be more beneficial to just kind of, if you're a homeowner and you're having a hard time with your insurance company, would it be beneficial just to kind of cut out the middleman at a certain point and just say, I'm not going to go with a public adjuster. I'm just going to go straight to an attorney. What is that appropriate? Would you say that that's a good strategy? And if not, is that ever a good strategy?
Some people do. So it is possible to not have a public adjuster and go straight to an attorney. There are plenty of states that barely have any public adjusters.
Right.
There's plenty of states that barely any attorneys will take on smaller insurance claims. So a public adjuster is like very necessary.
Sure.
So you can do it, is basically what I'm saying. You can do it. For somebody like me, my firm is set up for litigation. So we get involved, usually, sometimes we'll take claims earlier, but we usually get involved when there's an issue, when there's a dispute. So maybe an underpayment's been made, maybe it's denied. We will get involved at that point to see if we can push it forward, if not, go to litigation.
Yeah.
So we work with public adjusters because they do the entire front end claims process. So they're doing the inspections, they're submitting the estimates, doing negotiations preliminarily, and then moving it to us. So there's pros and cons. I think it depends on your state, where you're located. I think it depends on what point you're at in the claim, because if you're hitting that denied mark, so if you've submitted your own claim and you've been denied, possibly, it depends on who your adjuster is that you choose. Possibly they can get something done, but it may need to go to litigation, because litigation is the path that we have to get information from the insurance company, because
right,
you're not really entitled to much on the claims process side. But in litigation, court rules allow us to get discovery, documents, depositions, and we can get information, build the case against them to then hopefully get more money, get it paid, get the coverage issues ironed out so that we can resolve the claim.
Right. Man, and just kind of hearing you talk just reminds me, during Hurricane Michael, right? So many, and that was Florida, Fort Lauderdale. So yeah, for anybody that's listening, so I went down during Hurricane Michael, Panama City, that area, and so obviously, that was significant damage all along that area. Just homes were just completely wiped out. And on my side, obviously, insurance companies are going to send out independents like myself, which could vary from people more like me with a ton of experience that have done large losses out the ass and just whatever. But then also different vendors that are going to be contracted out by the insurance company. They're going to send out other people that are just sitting around at home somewhere hundreds, 1,000 miles away, that don't have very much experience, that are just looking to break into the business. And here they are thinking that they're going to go down to Panhandle, Florida, get a place by the beach and just replace roofs, and if they're off by a couple $1,000s, whatever, they'll figure it out later. Then they find out that they're rebuilding houses. And I found myself in a position where I'm going out and looking at these houses that the roof's been ripped off. Rain has just dumped inside of it. You're literally with exception to maybe like the siding and the framing, you're replacing everything in this house. And adjusters are going out there writing up, on like a 1,500, 2,000 square foot house, like a $50,000 estimate. Realistically, just enough to fix up a nice kitchen. And that's all that they're getting. And they're getting paid handsomely for it. Not because they're not so much because they're undervaluing the claim itself, but because they're just throwing 50,000 at it, getting paid on that 50,000, and then moving on to the next one where they're going to rinse and repeat, and they're going to do really well over the course of a month. And then I found myself in a position where I'm going in and I'm checking out these houses. I'm like, holy shit, they've prevented the policyholder from receiving $100,000 worth of repairs. And if you've got a contractor that wants 50% down, I hope you have a nest egg somewhere while your insurance company figures out whether or not their field adjuster has the intelligence to actually handle this claim or not. And that didn't just happen on one or two houses that I seen. This was literally all of them. It was insanity to me. I mean, how often do you run into like large losses like that are just like ridiculous, that just like blow your mind that somebody let it get to that point? Because the shocking thing to me is that they would make there would be another adjuster involved. Everything would get documented. Everything's photographed. Then somebody's going to review that. Then that's going to get kicked up to some other file examiner on the carrier's level. It's a large loss. Then somebody else is going to take a look at that. Then they're going to process payment, send it in. Then it comes back up. They take another look at it. They send it to, and it's just like, there's so many people involved and no one seems to have enough foresight to say, hey, this doesn't look right. So kind of,
and you've got, I mean, so there's obviously, and I know it's not really a conflict of interest, but I always think there's some conflict of interest when the person that's paying the adjuster to go out there is the person that wants the least amount possible in that estimate, right? Which is why you have public adjusters and other people that can be on the other side. So, conflict aside, there's also, I think, the people that are, so the higher ups that are looking at these adjustments of these claims are maybe looking at it through a lens of, okay, this is probably right. I'm just like running through it to make sure nothing is like glaringly wrong. Because in a cat situation, there's tons and tons of files. You get inundated. I mean, the people on the insurance side are already usually overwhelmed. Too many cases to handle anyway. So, it becomes that like, okay, this is probably fine. Nothing looks crazy. On to the next. So that's a lot ends up slipping through the cracks. People are overwhelmed. They just think, okay, this is probably fine. I don't see anything that's really standing out to me. So it could be, any of those things that is what happens when there's, large cat issues. And I remember plenty from Michael and from Sally where I was like appalled where they'd be like, okay, this is under deductible. And I was like, how on earth, people have $1,000 to $2,500, even, $500, $700, $7,000. I'm like, you can't get anything done for that amount of money. It's just, it shocks me sometimes.
Do you ever think that you could never go back to the insurance side?
No, yeah, I know some people that have gone back after trying to either open their own firms or work at a smaller, because most plaintiffs firms are smaller. Obviously there's like the big name ones, but people go and they're like, nah, I don't like this. I want to go back. And a lot of them just go in-house because it's a lot less stringent because it's not a lot of billables. It's just a little better of an atmosphere. Usually
it's easier, right? I guess is than
not as stressful.
But we'll say that. But they're going from, I find that interesting because even on my side, the independent side, I do really well as an independent and I've met public adjusters that I do better than, although I've met some public adjusters that I'm in the shadows of, but out of all of these years, I think I've met a ton of former IAs that decide to be public adjusters or have moved on to the policyholder side. I think I've met maybe one public adjuster that switched to the independent side.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as common on the adjuster side. It's more so with lawyers, but still very rare.
What do you think that is? I mean, obviously, I mean, obviously I feel like it's more rewarding it would be more rewarding on the policyholder side.
Depends on your preference.
Yeah.
Depends on your preference because some people that I know, they were offered like essentially a partner, like a very senior position in house with these insurance companies. So they're moving up. Maybe they don't have quite as high of like a billable mark or like a claim, how many cases they're handling, a caseload.
Right.
So it might have been like just a beneficial move for the person rather than the actual job itself.
A financial move, I guess you could say, right?
Right.
It's not about
Right.
the
Yeah. I could never do that. I am never going back to the insurance side. I'll probably never do another type of law, only first party property.
Right. Yeah, I've been on the fence for so long about switching over. I've just, I got to learn something new. I have my training company that I work on, and I'm doing that. And it's like, oh man, do I want to learn a whole new process of, the administrative side of it, the legal side of it? Have to, dump all my brain power into that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. When you said, and that commercial job that you had, that wasn't property at all.
So it's called commercial litigation. Commercial meaning like business litigation. I should have just said business litigation, but it had zero, like absolutely nothing to do with insurance. It was just businesses suing each other back and forth.
Really? Okay.
So like business A had a contract to do something with business B and they didn't do it, or someone didn't pay or whatever. I mean, just all sorts of companies, anything you can imagine. We represented like waste management companies, and I mean people who are training horses, all sorts of things. But nothing to do with insurance.
Right. Did you say, I'm sorry if you said this already, was that while you were going through law school, did you already have a desired path to go in as far as law?
Yeah, I took classes thinking I was going to do transactional.
The transaction.
Like I took like contracts drafting, and I mean, I was really into contracts. Because again, I wanted to do like M&As, franchising, all sorts of corporate law.
Okay.
But it all came in handy because the policy is a contract.
Right, exactly.
You know how to read clauses, interpretation, statutes, how things go together.
Right. So let me ask you this, then maybe you would be a good person to bring this up to. What do you think that homeowners really need to look out for, at least in Florida? Because Florida is a whole different beast, as I've come to find out. So Florida homeowners, is there anything that you'd recommend for Florida homeowners to like keep an eye on as far as their insurance policy goes?
I mean, at the bare minimum, I tell people like be aware of the exclusions, be aware of any deadlines. So
Right.
like if you have to provide a proof of loss within 60 days or just be aware of the deadlines, the exclusions, and like whatever your deductible is, because
that's a big one.
And this is probably surprising, but I've had many people come to us and say like, oh, like we had an inspection and they said it was under deductible, but I don't know why that would be. And their deductible is like 20 grand, but they don't have 20 grand laying around to put towards whatever damage. So they kind of put themselves in a bad place. And also limits. So like obviously water damage limit, all that jazz. People don't know that that's in there. They get presented with, maybe a few options when they're shopping for insurance. And, they say, okay, this one's cheaper. Let's go with that one. But they don't realize the cheaper one excludes a lot of things that would otherwise be covered in maybe more expensive
Right.
policies. So, they're kind of if you want to take that risk, obviously it's up to you. Then people are a little more risk adverse or not. But if someone's saying, you know what, I don't really care if something like that happens, I'll just pay for it. And I don't want to have to pay up front.
Right.
Otherwise, if you're like, hey, I definitely need coverage for something like this because, the age of the property or where we live or whatever.
Right. Especially in Florida. I mean, being just, hurricane prone and whatnot. Yeah. I've seen those policies as well with just high deductibles. And it's like, you had a couple sections of fencing come down. What did you think would happen? And yeah, in the term, if it's a $25,000 deductible, you got $20,000 worth of damage. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be on the hook. And, if you're making 85 grand a year, something like that, that hurts big time,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it does.
Man, so what's on so you have your own firm. So tell me about that. So how long have you been doing your own thing?
We opened on October 1st, 2020.
Okay. All right.
So what is it? November 23rd of 2021. So a little over a year.
Yeah. How's everything going with it?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Is this your first time ever running your own business in general?
You could say that, yes. I've had certain like side companies in the past,
Yeah.
but this is my first like actual full-time total company, 7 figures, whole team, 15 people,
Yeah.
or 13 people,
What
but we will be 15.
what was the other things, the other side things?
It was really just things. So I was like helping Amazon sellers with appeals. I don't know if you know anything about Amazon, but
I'm
Amazon can
aware of it.
suspend. Yeah. So if you're selling on Amazon doing any type of e-commerce, you can be suspended from all these platforms for doing anything. I mean, eBay, any type of e-commerce platform, you can be suspended. Your accounts can actually be like totally voided, totally deleted.
Yes.
But there's certain methods you have to go through to do certain appeals. And again, transactional person here, right? So I was like all into like writing these appeals. I mean, this is years ago. So I did that on the side. I said, this is super fun, but I'm going to focus on property. This is kind of like around the time I was getting into the plaintiff side. So I
Okay.
was like, this actually might be more fun than doing, this thing on the side.
Right. So that was just like a sort of solo entrepreneur, sole
Yeah.
artist sort of gig, freelance gig. I guess.
Yeah.
Was it a freelance gig sort of?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had a company and people would pay me flat rate to just, write an appeal, submit it, help them with like the whole process.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't what I'm doing now, which is
Yeah.
like, this is my company, this is all, but I've always had that entrepreneurial, like, spirit
Right.
where I was like, I'm going to have my own business. I was always interested in marketing and social media. So I kind of combined all of my passions into this.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Again, like the social media is like, I saw your follower count and I'm like, dang, she's doing it. She's really doing it. And it's starting to blow up there, and you've got the podcast too, right?
The modern professional. It's literally for any kind of professional, just explaining how to do online marketing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've got like CPAs and lawyers and even some PAs that are, like, oh, I love this podcast. Like, gives me so much insight because if you're looking to get clients, like just, really any clients, but if you're looking at clients that they're on social media, who's not on social media these days?
Exactly.
So I think it's the best route to go.
It's looking really good. Britt, it was awesome having you on. So just to kind of put a bow on this thing, right? So
does that mean I'm a gift?
Yeah. So all right, before we go, I guess, I've asked a few things about, advice for homeowners, right? You're young, you're taking an approach that I would say most other attorneys similar to you are not doing, which is not only the social media thing. And I meant to say this before. It's not just you're attacking your field on social media. It's that you are doing it with you as the face rather than your firm, right? So and that's something that I've over the last couple of years have really embraced more with my training company rather than promoting my training company, who I don't want people to do transactions with. I want them to do transactions with me, Jeremy Reddig. It's a personal thing. And that's what you're doing. So putting yourself out there and doing something a little bit different compared to the other, especially the bigger firms, right? Anybody else that's out there, an attorney that might be working with that big firm that maybe they don't feel like they're themselves. They don't feel like they're an individual. Or even the people that are in the smaller boutique thing that just feel like, hey, I'm watching this operation go and I might be able to do this, but I don't know enough. I'm just an attorney, right? I'm not a business owner. I don't know if you ever felt like that yourself, but what would you say to that person that's just kind of like on the edge, just worried about taking that first step?
So first and foremost, know your craft, know your skill, know your craft. So I spent I want to say, well over a year just like deep in property insurance. I was watching videos on YouTube of like how to install Modbit roofs, like very unexciting stuff.
Yeah.
But like I was like, I need to know this so I can properly assess a claim or
Right.
not. So I spent like time really getting into what do I need to know, what is important, educating myself, right? And then I switched, and as soon as I like heard myself giving people advice, or people were asking me questions, oh, like what about this, and I would be able to put something together to advise them, spot the issues, figure out what the solution would be. I was okay. Like now I can start really like advising people. And then once you do that, often, even for a little bit, you start to learn what people's most common questions are,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for us, so like things like, oh, how long is litigation take? What is this payment going to be? What's the next step in the process? Why do we have to sue? So I started making videos for all of these things. So if you're like just paralyzed and like you don't know how to just get on social media and say something, like I don't know what to say, I'm just going to make a graphic. People brush by graphics every time. That's just facts, right? There's so many graphics, and you get those like cutesy quotes and whatnot, but those really don't get as much engagement, especially on smaller pages, which I'm sure you've also experienced in the past. What really gets people is video, because people connect with people. They want to see a face. If they see a face, somebody getting excited, doing something like a funny reel or a quick tip or just something, anything of just a face of you, people will start engaging with that. They'll stop and say, oh, who's this person? What are they talking about? So use a kind of combine that. So use your most common questions, what people are asking you, or just questions people are asking in general in your practice area, and then answer that in a video. Get on a video and just say, what is my claim worth? And then jump into your analysis of what's a claim worth, or how to report my insurance claim and jump into that. It doesn't have to be fancy. In fact, there was a study done not too long ago that was saying how amateur content, so something that someone just like got on their phone and recorded real quick, rather than something that was like perfect lighting and yeah, exactly, something that's a little more amateur, gets more engagement, more views now than something that's perfectly curated. So like now is the time. Now is the time to start. Pick up your phone. I record everything on my phone, everything. So I would tell everybody, pick up your phone, answer your ideal client's most common questions in a video, and see where it takes you. See where it takes you.
To be an expert. I mean, that's what to kind of build off of that. Personally, with when I first started putting myself out there, I did not think of myself as an expert or anything like that. I was just a fucking guy, right, with a camera, and I'm putting things out there. And even to this day, I have an adjuster training company, and I will be the first to tell you, I don't know everything.
But the point is, we know where to go to get the answers. We know
Right.
we can figure it out. It's not that we know everything. It's that we know we can figure it out. We can figure out the answer. We know who to ask. We know where to go. I think that's more important than just knowing all of the things.
And a lot of people, give me your thoughts on this. A lot of people aren't ready to make that jump because they feel like they don't know enough, that they aren't at the level that maybe somebody like you are at. They just, maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome even behind that.
Yeah, everybody has imposter syndrome. I have that all the time. I'll see like attorneys that have, 100,000 YouTube subscribers. I'm like, oh gosh, like I know nothing, but and don't compare somebody else's chapter 25 to your chapter 1, right? Don't compare
100%.
I always tell people, so when someone's like, oh, your videos are so good, I don't know how I could do it. I'm like, scroll all the way down to like the beginning of my Instagram and like the first video I posted like in June of 2020, and then look at that and then tell me you can't make that, So, I mean, it's just like, think about most common questions. Can you answer them? You know more than Joe Schmo on Instagram who needs your help. If you don't post the content and explain to people what you know, you're doing them a disservice.
Right.
So get on there.
And it's just keep doing it. Keep doing it and doing
Yeah,
it and doing it.
exactly. You're never going to get to that perfect, look of the person that you're following, that you're admiring. You're not going to get to their level if you don't just start.
Right.
It's never going to happen.
Right. And people want that instant gratification, They want that first, heavy hitter. Yeah, I see it all the time with podcasts. People want to set up they need to get the nice microphone, the $500 microphone set up. They got to get the backdrop. They got to get everything. Only the best guests. And
people were asking me like, oh, what kind of lighting set do you have? When I was like posting like super like just normal videos, right? You're like, oh, what kind of camera are you using?
Right.
And I'm like, my phone. Still using my phone. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be complicated. Make it simple.
I fucking hate the lighting in this room right now. I have never. The one thing I hate about doing videos, about doing podcasts, is lighting. I hate everything about it, to be honest. But lighting in particular, it's just when I hit a certain level, I'm going to just have a person that just does lighting. And that's how I know I made it. But I do it. you're just doing it. It's not, it's, you got to get it out there. And what I noticed is that once I started putting things out there, not anything in particular, I wasn't doing, you mentioned, researching like how to install mod bit roofs and stuff like that, and it's good to have that stuff already ready, that knowledge already ready available to put out there. But it's not like you researched anything super technical. It's just, it's, I don't know, 15 minutes worth of YouTube. That's all it is. And you put something out there. And once you continue to put that out there, you might not feel like an expert. I didn't feel like an expert, but the dozens or hundreds or, potentially thousands of other people that are watching that, they start to see you as an expert. And then once they see you as an expert, they're wanting to know how they can do business with you, right?
Right. And I mean, even if you're uncomfortable speaking on like, simple questions or things, I mean, you could even use like current events or like things going on in the industry. So if like there's a new law that's passed or like, any little thing, you could even just get on and do a video like, oh, this new law was passed. Here's what, what it's about. You don't even have to like give advice or explain it or anything. Just make it like, informational and exciting. Oh, this new thing has happened, because then you're even just, that's helpful, right? You're putting people on notice that there's something new in your industry,
right?
So even that kind of stuff is helpful.
And would you say that that's the biggest thing holding, just, I don't know if you could even just say law firms, but business in general, from really progressing forward in social media, is just this idea that every post needs to be some production, and rather than just kind of filling the Grand Canyon with bricks and just pushing content out there?
I think it depends, because when I first started, June of 2020, there were very few attorneys doing anything. But now, here we are a year and a half later, I follow a ton of attorneys. There's like lawyer Instagram, lawyer TikTok. So it's like kind of blown up. So I think it was maybe that people weren't seeing other attorneys doing it, or maybe it was like just the PI attorneys and people didn't want to be spammy and scammy, but
Right.
That's not what it is at all. It's just, informing people, making it like educational and entertaining. So I think a lot of people are stuck on that. But also, there's plenty of firms that, maybe the partners or the people there are a little bit older. They don't really understand the social media thing. Like some people have seen my videos, especially my like fun TikToks, which fun TikToks always like get people in, right? So they get people attracted. So then I can actually provide them with a longer form video that maybe isn't as exciting. So, people will see my little video and they were like, what's the point of this little video? What is the point of this? Right. So I get that question all the time. Like, what, do you actually getting clients from that? And I'm like, yeah, I am. Like, people want a new kind of professional. They want a modern approach to it, especially people that are our age, or around our age or younger. Those are the people that are buying houses, looking at buying houses. So it's like a whole new market of people that have just opened up that are sitting on Instagram waiting for your video. For any practice area, any profession.
It's a personal connection too, right?
Personal connection, yeah.
That's it. You don't get that personal connection when you go to a firm's website and you see, all the partners there lined up behind a conference table,
Right.
That's just general, and you're going to get a consultation after that, and they're going to tell you everything.
But here's a caveat, right? So if somebody wants that experience, somebody wants the big law firm with the, oak desks and
Right.
wants to go in and talk to the person. If somebody wants that, they can find that. That's available. But for the people that want a modern approach, like me, all of our clients get access to all these video resources just for them to explain litigation process. They can Zoom us, they can email us, they can call us, they can text us, any kind of, virtual communication. If somebody's looking for that kind of experience, they're going to come to us. So, there's going to be a different kind of client for each type of person and whatever you're offering.
Right. 100%. Britt, I know you got to go. You've got a big meeting ahead. So I won't keep you on anymore, but if you are, how can people get a hold of you? How can a homeowner get a hold of you in Florida and they, and they realize that they have Allstate and they're screwed and they need help, or, or another attorney that wants to work with you? How can people connect with you? And what's your
So the best place to find me is going to be on Instagram. That's where I hang out most of the time. My handle is at lawyer.brit with 2 T's, BRITT, at lawyer.brit. I'm also on all the other social medias as Lawyer Brit. You can really connect with me anywhere. But best place is probably going to be Instagram. You can also call or email or message us directly through Instagram.
Don't let the insurance company push you guys over. Slide into those DMs, guys. All right, Britt, it was awesome. I wish you all the best, and I'd love to have you back on in I don't know, a couple months, something like that, and see how you're doing. Would you be interested?
That sounds great.
Awesome.
I'm game.
All right,
Thanks,
Britt.
Harold.
I'll see you soon.